Oh my God, Dave. You want to talk about beyond comprehension? You want to talk about beyond comprehension? Okay, it's ice cream. This ice cream is beyond comprehension. Okay, my mind, my fragile human mind, can't even fathom, can't even conceive of the wonderful orgy of flavor that is taking place on my tongue. Look at this! Look at this! Look at this! I don't know if you can see this little. It's Cherry Garcia. Okay, it's cherry ice cream with little chocolate chunks. Okay, it's beautiful, beautiful. And even every once in a while, they'll throw in a real cherry, a real black cherry. Can you believe that? It's amazing, beyond comprehension. Case closed. Point proven. I got nothing left to say, baby. I got nothing left to say. You feel what I'm feeling? You picking up what I'm putting down? You catching my drift? You getting the 411? You on my page, as we like to say, in the library, Dave? I don't know if you are, baby. I don't know if you are. Maybe I should try to make an actual argument. Alright, let's get down to business, shall we? This is Theoretical Bullshit once again, and this is a response to Dave Kerwin's response to my original video entitled Beyond Comprehension. Now, Dave, I want to talk about two different things in this video, two separate issues. One is the question that I actually asked in my video, and the other is your freaky weird answer that had absolutely nothing to do with anything that I was actually saying. So let's divvy that up and just work on those two issues as we come across them. So I'm gonna, as of right now, I'm just gonna quote you right off the bat. You say, "For some reason, God likes being mysterious. That's just something He likes to do." That's not the question. That has nothing to do with anything that I was saying. I'm not talking about a mystery. A mystery, Dave, is when you lose your keys and you don't know where they are. But whether you find them or not, their existence and physical location is still able to be comprehended by your human finite mind. Okay, secondly, the question had nothing to do with God or God's existence or why God is the way God is or why God chooses to be the way God is. The question was about us and the way that we are and why we were created by God to exist in the way that we do. I'm just gonna go over it again for you. Imagine that you are God and you are floating around in a sea of nothingness. Of course, I use the word floating metaphorically, but you are the mean, median, and mode of all of existence. You are all that there is. You are the default. You are average. You are normal. You are mundane. You are neutral. There is nothing that exists other than you. You are not special. You're not a god. You're not a god of anything at all because something else has to exist for you to be a god of anything. And so, to follow up on that, you do decide you want something else to exist, and you decide this other consciousness that you want to exist besides you, you decide that you're going to create that consciousness in such a way that it is so defective, it is so subpar, that it can't even understand things like your reasons. It can't even understand your existence. It can't even understand your methods or your being or your capabilities. Now keep in mind there's a big difference between the claim that we might not happen to know the answer to a particular question about God and the claim that we don't know the answer, but even if we were provided with the answer to a particular question about God, our human minds wouldn't be capable of understanding it or fathoming it with our finite human logic, and therefore it's not a question worth asking. That's what I'm talking about. I have actually been provided that rebuttal in conversations that I've had. I've had disputes with Christians and other theists in which I might ask a logistical question about God's existence or God's attributes, or I might point out what appears to be a logical fallacy in the claims attributed, or in the characteristics attributed to an omnipotent, omniscient, transcendent, all-powerful creator. And that's the response I've been given. Well, I know it seems illogical and it seems like it's not possible, but it just is, and you're not capable of understanding it, and I'm not capable of understanding it, so let's let it go. As if that's some kind of rebuttal, as if that's actually some kind of response. That is what we call an ad hoc hypothesis. Look it up, kids. And that's what I'm talking about. Just because we might be capable of understanding God or God's methods is not making us just as powerful as God. It does not give us a reason to rebel. In fact, it strengthens, if God is perfect, it should strengthen our conviction that God is doing the right thing and that we should follow God. But if you're going to be incomprehensible to the human mind and appear illogical and appear as an absurd logical fallacy, then as a God you're more likely to have more people rebel because they just might not be convinced that you even exist. So the question still stands. Why would a God do this? Why would a God create us in such a way that we exist so subpar and so defective that we can't even understand basic principles of his existence? Okay, one last thing that I want to bring up while I'm at it. It's this thing that you said which caught my attention. You said, if God is a supreme being, it doesn't matter if you think something is a good idea or a bad idea. You think that I'm actually trying to challenge God because I don't agree with the way that he does things. What I am doing, Dave, is challenging that God exists, because I believe that if a God did exist, I and everyone else would agree with the way that he did things. Do an exercise with me for a moment. Just try to take yourself outside of this context and try to separate yourself from all the cultural norms to which you've become accustomed, all the things that you have been taught to take for granted. Take yourself outside of, Jesus and the Bible and all the specifics of your religion that you've been taught from day one, and just try to conceive, hypothetically, theoretically, what it would be like in a world in which an all-perfect creator designed everything. What should we be expecting to see in this situation? I mean, if a supreme being did exist, if a perfect creator did exist and created the plan for the universe and ran things, I would expect to be in complete and utter awe at the unequivocal perfection of God's plan and methods. I mean, it would be a plan of which no greater could be conceived. It could not be approved upon in any way, and we would all be helpless but to just sit in complete reverence of this plan because of how perfect it is. Yet, this isn't the case. Look at the God's Checklist video. This is why I created it, because I want you to refer to this for what I'm about to say. But anytime I have a Christian explain to me how it all works or how God does things, it's a letdown. It's a disappointment. It's completely unimpressive. It's clumsy, it's redundant, it's inefficient, disorganized, completely lacking in any kind of foresight or common sense. I mean, literally, George Bush, if he sat down with a pencil and paper, could create a better plan for the creation of the universe and the way that he ran the universe than the God that you believe is actually currently doing so right now. Okay, maybe that's a slight exaggeration. And it's the same thing with the Bible. If you look at the Bible, I mean, if a supreme being did exist and inspired every word in the Bible, I would expect the Bible to be the most profound, mind-blowingly perfect book ever written, and yet instead you open up to any page of the Bible and you see painfully obvious displays of primitive ignorance on all fronts, from ethical to scientific, barbarism, inconsistency, and a doctrine that is 95% inapplicable to our culture today, and maybe 5% timeless wisdom, but even that timeless wisdom isn't something that couldn't be found in any other religion or philosophy across the planet. You open the Bible, you see exactly what one would expect to see in any other ancient writing attempting to give meaning to the world with the primitive understanding of science and nature that they had. Again, this isn't me challenging the plan or the methods of a being that I actually think exists. What I am doing is arguing that God must not exist because, I'm sorry, but no supreme being would have a plan or a holy book this pitiful. As a Christian, you think that the plan must be perfect. That's what you're having faith in. That is the preconceived conclusion that you have come to, and you have just made this assumption, and there's no way anybody's going to convince you otherwise, that the plan must be perfect. You have no evidence that this being exists, you have no evidence that this being is perfect, and you have no evidence that this being devised this plan, but in any case, these are the assumptions you have made, and you are rock solid on them. So, when anybody comes along and points out a problem in the plan, or has a question about the plan, or in any way acts skeptical of the plan, you attribute that to their imperfection and their flawed nature or their sinfulness, and there's no way that you could be convinced to take into consideration that the plan itself might not actually be perfect. You asked me at the end of your video, you said you wanted to get into a debate at some point about what's intellectually honest and what's intellectually dishonest. Well, Dave, this kind of thinking is intellectually dishonest. In fact, it's the epitome thereof.